Welcome back to my Humber Model Railway. Now, this is running on to part 2 of this particular running session tonight, and we're concentrating on all mainline locomotives. So these will all be off what many people have talked about as being split chassis construction. Okay, and a lot of people I've had problems with them, with the axles and things. But I managed to repair any of mine that have needed repairs. And as you can see, this one's going around. It's not needing any axle repairs, this one. I had to fix the motor a little bit better to the chassis to get it working properly. I've explained all about the moguls in part 1, so we're going to be departing from the mogul in a moment. And we're running the mogul in so that we can look at the next locomotive. So if you just bear with me just a moment, so we'll just bring her into the... There we go, so we're up at the signal now. And we need to change the points. And as I talked about in the part 1 of this, I'm starting to think about electrifying at least the far 2 points, which you can see just in front of the locomotive, simply because it'll save me from getting up and down while I'm making these videos. So I'll be back in just a moment. I'll try not to kick the tripod this time. I did that earlier in part 1, so do apologise for the jolt. Okay, so let's bring her in now. There we go, bit of a sharp stop there. There you can see the two locomotives there together. That's our Manor class Lyddon Manor and our 4300 class 260 mogul there as well. Okay, so we'll be moving over to a couple of smaller engines now, and we'll just decide which one it's going to be in just a moment. If we just wait just a moment, I'll just change all the points around again. Now we're just going to change over to the fire station over there, and you can see in the goods shed we should have a Collett goods over there, and also in the passenger platform we got a 060 Pannier tank as well. Now we'll see if we can get this one going. It can be a little bit oh, we go, we go in. Well, I'll explain to you about this particular one in a moment and what we're looking at. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the vehicles which is actually behind this particular locomotive. So hold on a second. Right, there we go. So you can see 3 of the locomotives there all together. Just change the points. And we're away. Now, the locomotive you see coming round now is an 060 Collett goods. Again, it's a mainline model. And it's one of the very first mainline models I ever owned. This one I bought in the early 1990s in a shop called Trains of Bristol. Now this one's been fully rebuilt by me, in that I've taken it all apart. I took it totally, completely to pieces, cleaned up the motor, and then now it seems to be running quite well. It's a little bit stiff. I mean, it does seem to need a bit of encouragement to get it going sometimes, but it's going quite well now. And bear in mind that this was second hand when I bought it in the early 1990s, and so it's quite an elderly model. It was not boxed. and somebody had actually made changes to this locomotive as well. And I don't know how many changes are made, whether or not the owner actually changed the livery, but certainly the identity of the locomotive has been changed in a way. It was a Great Western locomotive, but the owner has actually changed it into BR livery. Okay, we'll just slow it down a little bit there. And as you see, this one's going over points quite well. A little bit better than the poor old Manor was. I know what's wrong with the Manor actually, and the Mogul, and I can get those fixed quite easily now. It's the middle wheels. Need to do another clean up around there again, just to check they're making good contact. Now this was in a glass case, in a shop called Trains of Bristol. Some people may remember it from Bristol. It was in Bedminster in Bristol, and it was run by, well, it was owned by a gentleman called Derek, and he was in there with his son. And I spent many a happy an hour in there, you know, browsing and talking about locomotives. He was a very nice gentleman, Derek. Now, I want to get 3205. Now at the time, this Collett goods number 3205 was on the West Somerset Railway. I actually have been behind this locomotive on a train being hauled by this one. And of course I saw it in the shop 3205, having not long been on the West Somerset Railway, and I knew I just simply had to have it. Apparently it's the only example of a preserved Collett goods locomotive. They were very numerous over the Great Western Railway, pulling either passengers or freight, and they were certainly used in the latter days of the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway as well. They were used on the branch between Evercleach Junction and Highbridge, and that would have been when the Somerset and Dorset Railway came under the ownership or the influence of the Western Region of British Rail. I think 3205 is an S&D locomotive. Now behind it is a nice little train of various wagons. We'll have a little look at that in a moment. And as you see, this one runs quite well. And I think they do. I mean, if you take one of these completely to pieces, clean it all up properly, maybe put new brushes and springs. I did put new brushes and springs in this particular one, so it is running quite well now. And as I probably mentioned, actually, if you've seen part one, yeah, for those of you who have not seen part one, you've gone straight to part two. Basically, Mainline was a company that was owned by Palatoy, the Palatoy company, and they made modern railway items up until 1984. And then the parent company Palatoy decided to get out of the modern railway business, and it really evolved through a company called Replica Railways, and then eventually became Bachmann. So that's the Bachmann that we all know today. And in fact, Bachmann carried on making locomotives of the split chassis design. I don't think anybody's actually constructing them now in that business design. Probably one of the main reasons for that is that these locomotives are a little bit more involved if you want to actually convert them to run on DCC. Now that is not a problem for me because I'm running on DC, just with the traditional way of running locomotives. We'll bring our little Collett goods in, we'll see if we can have a closer look at her in a moment. Now we can talk a little bit about this. I don't know if my actual camera work's improved, but I do have, I've got a new camera today, which I'm now using. I'm hoping that is a little bit, certainly a little bit better at focusing than the old one. The old one was a little bit slow to adjust between distances. So if you were looking at something, say, close up, and you wanted to focus on this, say, there we go. if I wanted to focus on the chimney, it would have taken quite a long time for it to focus on that particular area of the locomotive. And of course a lot of what I was trying to do was a bit blurry. I think we're getting a bit of a brighter image as well on this. Okay, and then we'll have a look at this now. A little train. We've got a wagon there carrying a TR3 car. That's quite an interesting one. And some of these were the ones, if you saw my Safe from the Skip, Hornby train set Safe from the Skip, that was 3 different videos which I made. That involved some railway items which are about to be thrown into the skip by my sister, and I saved them basically. They'd been kept in a leaky shed and they were in terrible condition. Certainly the boxes were soaking wet, but the actual contents weren't too bad. I think on the actual TR3, and these were played with by children when they were quite young, I think the windscreen has been broken on that particular model there, so I might see if I can get that fixed. But we'll have a little look and see what we've actually got here. I'll bring it all round. I don't know if we can get a good, any sort of broadside view on these. There we are, we can see our little TR3 there. Now, the first 3 wagons are all Hornby. Now, the one with the tanks on the back, with the sort of red tanks, just there, that's a Lima vehicle. And then the actual brake van at the back is Bachmann. So really the Hornby and the Limas obviously weren't made by the Mainline company. That's their rivals. But this was a lot of Hornby stuff that was actually saved. Certainly the first 3 wagons there were the ones which were featured in my Safe from the Skip series. Okay. So we got TR3 there. As you can see, I can focus in now a little bit better. If I want to focus, I just tap the and there we are. We're in focus straight away. So we can have a proper look at everything now on my railway with this new camera. Okay, we'll just bring along a bit more. Aha! Now. A bit of a blast from the past, these. Lima wagon. This is a beer wagon. A Watney's beer wagon. I think Watney's beer disappeared in the 1980s or the 1990s. I can't remember. Probably 1980s. And I think this would be almost certainly what this train is carrying at the moment. Just something called Watney's Red Barrel. Some of you are sort of my age. I'm 63 now. Would remember the Watney's beers, Watney's Starlight, there was Watney's Special, and Watney's Red Barrel as far as I can remember. There's certainly in my day they were called those, and I think somebody's trying to bring back the brand now. So we can see on that one. Well, that's a beer wagon there. Okay, and then we're just going to reverse back. The next one, which is there, is called Hunting. We'll come in back a little bit if we can. Another look. Oh, there we go. Hunting for coal, it says on there. I always maybe wonder if it says hunting for coal if they ever found any. There we go. And then there's this one here. Focus on that. Oh, there we go. The Patent Victoria Stone Company. Okay, so this locomotive, this wagon, the hunting wagon, and certainly this wagon here carrying this, it's called a low fit with the actual TR3 on it. These are all the ones which are the part of the collection which I saved from the skip. And our Collett goods running at probably way above any kind of realistic speed I would have travelled. And we're going to bring our Collett goods into the station in a minute, so we can have a little look at the last of the locomotives. And it's only different to the other three, as in relation to its branding, but really the construction's the same. We've got a whole split chassis collection out tonight. So this one you see going past now is split chassis. And it's a little bit difficult. Well, it's not that hard to explain how a split chassis locomotive works for those who've never seen one before. We'll try and get some sort of focus in it. If you imagine the chassis split in two halves, and you've got chassis half there, another half there, and there's an insulating blocks in between. The wheels basically sit directly underneath in grooves. So you've got, and then the motor is bolted onto the top. So there's no wires in the construction at all. It's basically a few plastic insulating pieces, the wheels and the axles, the motor's bolted on top, and that's it, and then the body goes on top. So they're very, very simple construction, split chassis. Personally, I think it's quite a clever design. And as I said in part one, you can get the axles for these. So certainly for the Manor class and for the Moguls, you can get replacement axles. If you get the old dreaded split axle problem, which can happen on the older ones, then we're looking at locomotives which, like I say, are like 40 years old and more perhaps. So I mean, we need to give these a little bit of latitude, I think. There we are, there's our Collett goods coming down now towards us again, with a goods train on it. They would have also put passenger trains. And look back across into the goods shed there, and we've seen our last locomotive for tonight coming out in just a moment. So what we'll do then is we're going to bring our Collett goods round to the points around here. Just for the points, and there you can see three split chassis locomotives all together. So in the foreground, the green one is Linden Manor class locomotive. Beyond that is the 260 Mogul, also GWR, and then just in the background, the one you just saw going around, which is the Collett's goods. Okay, so we'll just bring this one in if we can. Now, don't be too surprised to see the occasional derailment on this layout. Like I say, it goes away at the end of every night, and the end of every running session, and then I have to take it all down, take it to pieces, then it's put back together again for the next running session. So you do get the odd sort of poorly fitted piece or loose fish plate. So, but that comes with the territory. If I want to be able to have this layout in the format it's in. Okay, so if you just bear with me just a second, I'll be right back. I'm going to try to get up now without knocking into the tripod and making a uncomfortable jolt. Right, here we go. So let's see if we can bring it forward. There we are, that's perfect. So we can see now our goods train is in the goods shed. Something that you don't see so often on railways. You will on some preserved railways, but really a lot of freight was moved away from the railways. I mean, it was a combination of things really. There was road transport which competed with the carrying of goods by rail, but also I think there was a conscious decision made by British Rail to stop carrying goods for some reason. I mean, at one time they were what they called a common carrier, and British Rail or the railways had to carry anything that was asked of them to carry. But then it was just decided suddenly that they would cut back. And in fact, during the rundown of a lot of branch lines, the first thing to go was and on a lot of them, if they were staying as a passenger service, was the goods sidings. That was the first bit to be lifted up. And then eventually a lot of the branch lines went under the beaching report. Well, that's another story. Now what we're going to do is we'll have a look at our last locomotive in just a moment. Just have to get up again, and we'll have a change of points. And this one's carrying, it's going to be pulling just a single Hornby coach. And again, you can hear the motor. All of these locomotives have got very similar, the same kind of motor. Now this, all three here have got the same motor, and then the Collett goods got something similar, but it's a kind of a metal construction. But these are kind of what they call pod motors on here. And even the one that's the Pannier tank has got a motor similar to this, same as this. And in fact, it's a consequence really of what happened after the Mainline brand disappeared. I think the factory in Hong Kong wanted to carry on making locomotives, and it was proposed that they might certainly in Britain would be marketed as Replica railways. But I think the people in Hong Kong decided that they wanted to be called Bachmann to give themselves a more of an international or American appeal, and that's really how Replica railways sort of like eventually disappeared, I think, as a branding. But you can see, we're about to see a Replica railways pannier tank, and as far as I can tell, it's virtually the same construction as the original Mainline pannier tank. In that, again, it's a split chassis construction. Number 11002 pannier tank 060BR, black, 8743. There we go. Brilliant. Okie dokie. So that's that. So we're lovely. Okay. So we're going to get you underway in just a second, as I've changed the points. And a lot of these pannier tanks and small locomotives were very often to be seen with one or two coach trains taking their passengers to their destinations, usually on branch lines. And you can hear it, the way that it is running. It runs similar to a mainline locomotive. An 060 pannier tank. Very, very, very numerous engines, the pannier tanks. Now you can see it's a nice little runner. Now, at the moment, you can pick up split chassis locomotives for a reasonable price, obviously because they've got a bit of a reputation with the axles, but which you can replace anyway. But at the moment, if you wanted the Dapple version of the Mogul, you'd be paying well over £100 for one. Whereas I think I picked up the Black Mogul, which you can see there. It was less than £30. I had to do some work on it to get it going properly, mind you, but that's another story. These little pannier tanks, lovely little engines. It's in BR black with the late crest. Replica Railways 5700 class 060 pannier tank. Introduced in 1929 on the Great Western Railway, designed by Charles Benjamin Collett. There were 863 of these built, which I think is a testimony to their usefulness. And you will see them on quite a few preserved railways because they're the ideal size, and they're quite powerful, really. Quite powerful. Yeah, I mean, the tractive effort is £22,515. Now, because they're a tank engine and the water and the coal is all self-contained on the locomotive, obviously these would have had a shorter range before they needed more coal and more water compared to a tender engine, which got the dedicated tender behind it to carry more coal and more water. If I were going to compare, we'll do a quick comparison. It'd be interesting to see the Pannier tank, if it tells you on here anything about these. No, I was hoping it might say on the mainline information whether it would give the tractive effort to one of these, but certainly the Pannier tanks are very powerful. Now we're running into 26 minutes now, and so we've got part 1 and part 2, two sort of 26-minute videos, and I hope it's interesting enough for you to want to watch, because I think okay, they're not perfect. I always say that they're not perfect, but I think a lot of the time these mainline replica railways or Bachmann split chassis locomotives were given quite a bad press, and you can get them to run reasonably well. I mean, with a bit of work and cleaning up and everything else, but really you're dealing with quite old, elderly machinery by now. And this one here, actually, I bought brand new in the middle of the 1990s. I don't know how much I paid for it because the price tickets come off, but that was certainly bought in the middle of the 1990s. And this is one of the locomotives which was stored in the attic in its box. And I got this out in March of 2020 when the lockdown began to bite, and that's when I first got my railways back down again. I've been obviously my main problem in this room is lack of space. You can see it's quite distraction, but there's not much space between there and the opposite wall, and there's not much more space now between me and the edge of the layout. So I do get the occasional I do occasionally get tangled up in the tripod, unfortunately. As some of you will probably notice when I've had the occasional jolt. I hope you found this interesting tonight. And if you like what you see, press like and subscribe and press that bell if you want to see more videos. I certainly will be making more videos, and I certainly intend to be continuing with my modern railway interest once the lockdown's over. And obviously there'll be a lot more, as the lockdown comes to an end, there'll be a lot more leisure opportunities. But I wouldn't try to make at least one video maybe once a week, because obviously when the lockdown comes to an end, that'll be the lure of the pub for me, and also my our little holiday home as well, our little holiday caravan. So it may be that I may not be making videos quite so often, but I will be certainly keeping up my interest and try to make one a week for you all. Okay, so I'm going to bid you farewell now, and thank you very, very much for watching, and thank you for your interest. Thank you, and good night.